Welcome back to Fly Fishing Rutland Water. I'm down at one of my favourite spots in this particular wind at this time of year, which is New Zealand Bay. And it's a fabulous spot in this type of wind. I've had 3 fish in the last 3 sessions here, so it's been a spot that, unlike most of Rutland recently, has been catching fish. Now I've got 2 flies on. I'm out with my 5-weight rod because this is one of the spots I specifically wanted to use for the 5-weight rod, because we can get into deep water pretty quickly, but the delicate presentation with a 5-weight can often work. So I'm fishing a dry foam daddy on the point just to keep the flies above the surface, and then I've got a size 14 gold ribs hare's ear just below it. Don't need to cast it very far here. If there's fish around, they'll be moving up this bank close in the deep water. Most of the takes I've been getting have been on there's a gold rib hare's ear on the dropper, about size 14, and then a dry daddy above that. Most of the takes have been on the dropper, just subsurface. There are daddies hatching around here and a lot of hawthorns, but fish don't seem to be feeding on them in anger. Now this is a spot I normally get a chance to cast a rising fish, but they've not been on the surface as much this year as they have been in previous years. I usually see the fish further down the bank moving and then intercept them on the way up. Now I know there's fish up by those trees quite close in, just under the surface. I haven't seen any evidence of fish rising so far. Well, they seem to come past here in waves. You'll see nothing for 15 minutes, half an hour, then a group of fish will come past, and if you can put your flies in front of them, it can often be deadly. And sometimes the fish go after the daddy when it's being pulled back. That's happened quite a lot. The wind is actually very good for here. It's kind of coming off my left shoulder and blowing out into the bay, so I can throw out a really quite long line, really just using the wind to take it out. So I've covered close in, I'm throwing it out and letting it drift down in the current a bit further out and let the flies go down a little bit. It's nice to be back on the banks. I've been very reluctant to film because the banks have been so hard, like I said in the last video. This spot, you have a chance of getting into deep water. Now if you look down there, you can see the exposed clay is really only about 10 yards out, and then I'm into this darker coloured material which has obviously got some life in it. There's a few people fishing down there. They haven't had anything. My friend Tori was fishing down here. He hasn't had anything either. So we'll give it an hour. Somebody kindly said, oh, in. Brilliant, exactly the same spot and exactly the same tactics. Now that must only be a few minutes into the session. That's only been, what, 2nd cast in, and we've got a fish, which is exactly what I was hoping might happen. Now we need to get this line onto the reel, out the way. Fish has been out the water twice already. There we go. Oh, it's off. Oh, just need to check the flies now to make sure that we haven't lost a fly. I'll show you the flies I'm using. So there's the first fly is a little gold rib hare's ear. There's a little bit hanging off of that, so I think that's the fly that it's probably taken. And there is the foam dry daddy. So fish on the 2nd cast, but we didn't manage to keep hold of it. Now that's one of the downsides of using an expensive line on the bank. I obviously have to keep it in the net, which means if I want to use the net to land the fish, I've got to get the line out of the net, and that's what cost me that fish, was messing around. So like I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by that fish, and that was only the 2nd cast. No fish visible on the surface, but they're clearly feeding under the surface because there is some vegetation there. There's obviously something under the surface that they're feeding on. There's an abundance of fly life coming off the trees behind me, and I think that's what's happening. They're picking the drowned insects off just underneath the surface. Must get them onto the reel faster though, if I'm going to. Same tactics as before, just throw the line out and let it. Now that fish took when the flies were static. I wasn't moving them at all there. Let's see if we can get another one. It wasn't a big fish, it looked like a stocky, so I'd expect that where there is one stocky, there are more. That's the fourth fish I have had in 4 sessions. Now that's not been happening this year in Rutland. I've had to fight for every single fish, so it's nice that the fish seem to be coming in and feeding in this particular spot. I hope we get another one, but we can't really take anything for granted. Once you've let the fly sit for a little while, it's actually worthwhile retrieving. Sometimes they'll take when the fly is moved past them or over them. It's usually when they come out of the water that they come off as well. And that's exactly what happened there. I much prefer it when the fish stay deeper down. There's also nothing worse than when you come down for a session and you catch a fish early on and then get nothing for the rest of the time on the bank. It becomes a little bit frustrating. And also you get very annoyed about the one that got away. We missed the net there. Careful with that. Get a lot of stick for using 100 quid lines, but sorry and all that. I like it and it makes a real difference to the presentation. That's nicely out. I've renamed this place Amen Corner because the golf course turns a corner around here, Rutland Water golf course. And it's the golf course I used to play quite a lot when I still played golf. And it is very much like Amen Corner on the Augusta National course, where because the course turns around a corner, there's a lot of topography, the wind tends to swirl. So 1 minute it's in one direction, the next minute it's in another. The other spot I like is just a few feet up that bank by the magic tree. Now that probably wasn't a fish that was in this area, that was probably a fish that was moving up the current and just happened to come across the flies. And this is why this spot is quite good. You can actually, unusually for me, you can stay in one spot and intercept the fish rather than having to move up and down the bank like I normally do trying to find them. Yep, line's in the net. Got a bit further down the bank this time. I fished this bank with dries and wet flies yesterday, and just before I was going home I decided to try something else. I'd been fishing with Craig Barr on the boat a couple of weeks ago, and Craig was telling me about fishing for brownies deep down with a DI sweep, because it takes the fly down and then brings it up in a big U shape, and the fish will often follow it up. So I thought I'll fish into the deep water off the point with a single humongous and a DI5 sweep line, and I got a fish on the first cast. The only fish of the session, but I got a fish. It was fabulous. Yeah, just a baby. DI5 sweep in a single humongous first cast. A couple of days before that, I got a couple in here. One in here I was fishing the hare's ear and floating shrimp, and it took the floating shrimp. And then the fish I got a couple of days ago was just off those trees, and it took the gold ribbed hare's ear. So I'm consistently catching in this spot. Dalbach Muskin hybrid. It's a new fly that. This has never been fished before. I bought it from the Logic Grapham. these flies that are designed to catch anglers rather than fish, though that one definitely caught me because I thought it looked nice. So I'm hoping that's a fly that catches fish. It's kind of an everything and nothing fly. It looks like a nymph, it looks a bit like a buzzer, so it kind of represents all sorts. Now the same technique here, we're going to let this just come round in the current for a little bit, let the flies sink in the water, and then we'll bring them back across the weed bed. Once the flies have gone down, I've found in this spot the fish seem to like a little bit of movement in the fly. I tend to find it's when I'm inching it back a little bit that subsurface I get the takes. And actually on the surface last year I was catching fish on daddies, pulling the daddies back across through the ripple. Don't touch it. Yet another example of a swan not touching the line. Thank you very much. Right, perfect. Right, let's give you some variety. Let's go up the bank a little bit and see if there's anything showing up there. Last time I was here they were very close in, almost a couple of rod lengths out, very close to those trees. Right, so I'm switching the flies here and I'm going to put a tiny little cul de canard. Tempt the fish that are feeding on these tiny little insects that are in the air around. There's a fish there right in front of me, just rose about 2 rod lengths out. There's another one right in front of me. Been fishing this spot for days now, but they've been incredibly tricky to catch. The fish I caught in here 3 or 4 days ago, it took the gold-ribbed hare's ear on the dropper and not the dry fly. And again it was that same kind of take, quite a vicious tug before it shot off. And when you catch them in here, it's shallow water, so it's like playing bonefish. Maybe not quite bonefish. Trout aren't as strong as bonefish, but you kind of get the drift. Long powering runs out rather than deep ones, because the water's too shallow. They have to go out. It's the only way they can get away. See if we can go a little bit further and get that one. It's within casting range, a little bit more than I have been, but oh, that might have been a tug there. Right, it's moving up, so we just have to not aim at the fish, aim at where we think the fish is going to be. Right, that's in the spot. That's in the spot. If that fish is moving up, it's going to intercept those flies. Fish aren't sitting in the rough water, they seem to be sitting in this little ebb current that's being created as the wind blows the deep water and kind of creates this swirl in this area. There's lots of black hawthorns coming off of here, so I'm going to try a little black hopper just to imitate one of the hawthorn. Oh, right on the surface there again. Something that imitates a drowned black hawthorn. See if that works. Don't use much line out here. Another one! Goodness. They're all just up from me where I was before. That high-pitched squeal. There's an osprey right up there, right above me. Yep, that's an osprey. Very distinctive call. I guarantee it'll be catching more fish than me. There's the osprey again. I hope you can see that. That's it moving lower. One of Rutland's famous ospreys. Right, I'm now back in next to the magic tree. The fish up there were driving me nuts. There was a lot of fish moving, but they just wouldn't take. Now I've just come back down to the magic tree because I had a feeling that the ripple might be better here. And just as I arrived, I saw two fish rising at exactly the spot I would be expecting them to be. So I'm hoping that there's fish here. I've gone back to the foam daddy and the gold-ribbed hare's ear, and I'm just going to throw this just right out in the area where I saw those fish moving. That's as far out as I need to be. There was two that just head and tailed right in this spot. Now this was the magic spot last year. The fish just seemed to come into this area and then turn around. So we'll see if we can get another one. I'm going to give it half an hour in here. I never got a touch up there at all. Fish moving all over the place. Really close in, but just wouldn't take. So I'm going to have half an hour here on the off chance that I can get something. I can't stay too late tonight. It's 6:15. I need to be off the water and on my way home by 6:30. Throw it a little bit further out. Oh, there's one there, right in front of me. Here's me saying throw it further out. Another one there. Oh, that one's just gone past the fly. Here. Oh, they are here. They are definitely here. Showing the same behaviour as last year. That's so close in. There we go. There we go. Right, we're not taking the line at the net, just a stocky bit. This is what I was talking about, the right behaviour. I knew I'd get one in here. What's it on? It's on the gold-ribbed hare's ear again. It's just a stocky. Doesn't matter though, they all count. Now that was pulling the flies back. It's the gold-ribbed hare's ear just under the surface. Now, this is the beauty of this net. We can throw the line out. And on the 5-weight rod, you feel everything. There we go. Excellent. Just a small fish, but it's a fish. Let's just get it revived and back. Come on, on you go. And there it goes. It's swimming away slowly, but it's going away. Yeah, that should be fine. Exactly the same as last year. All of the fish I've had in the last week have been on a suspended size 14 gold-ribbed hare's ear with a dry fly on the point, just in a kind of semi-washing line, and it works. So lots of fish moving around. One of them finally came and took it. That's exactly what you're hoping for. So thanks for coming out fly fishing on Rutland Water with me this evening. We started with a fish that we released prematurely, and we finished with a fish that we released properly. So as always, if you've liked the video, please make sure you hit the like button. And I'd be delighted if you would subscribe to the channel to see more of my fishy adventures. Now it's time for tea. Thanks for watching.